Now what happens if we throw this all into a very simple loop? For variable index in person, console.log index. What happens? What do you think is going to happen anyways? Before I hit refresh, just take 2 seconds and think to yourself, what should happen based on what you know what is going to happen. Here we have it. We have a list of all the keys in the object. Technically, this is not called index. These are technically keys. And now we have the different keys. What if we want to find out which key is what exactly? We could do person. Now we can't do dot key because that doesn't work, not with an object anyways. So we can't do key because that doesn't exist either. But what we can do is use key as the index, which we're familiar with arrays, and constructor to figure out what exactly it is. So we know that name is a string, age is a number, tech is an array, change name is a function, change age is a function, and married is a Boolean. So now if we only ever wanted to get just the strings from an object, we could say if person key dot constructor is equal to, might as well do a very precise, a very strict comparison here, is equal to string. We'll just move that in there, indent it, and there we have it. The only piece of information in that object that is currently a string. But what happens if I said that I wanted to change the age from a number to a string? Because there's no restriction here. Technically, I can change this to anything I want. Person.changeAge, and I'm going to put super old, because why not? Look at that. Age is now a string as well. Now, do we know what that is? Nope, but we can find out, because all we have to do to get that value is type that. Look at that. We know that name is a string, and that his name is John Johnman. Age is also a string, and we know it's super old. So now not only did we add extra data, we added a function, we did all of this in objects, and we sort of broke the idea that any of our information could really be any data type. And this is where it comes down to validation. This should actually be number, or parse int if you want. If you want to Google that one, I'm not going to go over that right now, but it's this function, parse int. And now we have all this extra information in here. And that is essentially all there is to objects. Objects are essentially a way to hold all of the information that you have learned so far into one tidy area. Now, why would we ever do this? Well, because person holds all the information associated with this person. But if we wanted to add another one, we could do that. We could write a function that creates this object for us and spits out another person. So we can start cloning people. And with each clone, we can tweak each little property, each little adjustment. So now all of a sudden, instead of just having one person, we can have an army of people. They can all be very similar, or we can change them completely. Now, if you're trying to figure out where this is applicable, a great way to think about this is video games. If you've ever played a video game where there are more than one bad guys, like Fallout, for example, or any zombie movie, any zombie video game, they sort of just come out of nowhere, right? They're all pretty similar. They have a few different attributes, but they're all pretty similar for the most part. And all they did, essentially, was create a function called clone and return person. So now we have variable clone1 is equal to clone. Variable clone2 is equal to another clone. And if we console log clone1 and console log clone2, and then at the end of this, console log, all the other information here, we're going to get a ton of information, right? So now we have two Elons. And all we have to do is clone1.change name, definitely not a clone. And what happens? Look, we have definitely not a clone. Now there is one little problem with what we have done. And this is a problem with closure. Closure, remember, takes this variable, allows you to use it inside of a function, and spits it back out. So if we change anything in here, it's going to be changed for every single clone. Now this is like changing the secret formula for Coca-Cola. If we change it at the source, it's going to change across the entire world. As soon as they distribute it, it's going to be changed. How do we get away from this? Well, we take this and we make it a local variable. And just to make sure our code doesn't break, person is also equal to clone. And let's change clone to, let's change his name to something funny, like George Cloney. I know, lame. Anyway, refresh the page. Oh, cannot get property of change name. Why is that? Because, well, nothing has been returned. Return, not object, return person. There we go. We have definitely not a clone. We have George Cloney, and we have John Man. So, we just learned about arrays. We just learned about objects. And now what I want you to do, and this one's going to take a little while. This assignment is not going to be super easy. It's not quite a project, but it's not easy either. I want you to create an object. Just give it a few attributes. They're key value pairs. So you've got a key here, you've got a value here, you've got a key here, you've got a value here. Then I want you to add a function to it. Now these functions are basically anonymous functions. The only difference is it's not declared as a variable, it's declared as a key inside of an object. And then I want you to go ahead and run that function. I don't really care what the function does. All I want you to do is make sure that that function returns something. Even if you want it just to say alert hello world. Go ahead, do that, as long as it works. I just want you to get a feel for how objects work. Then I want you to change one of the values. It doesn't have to be in a function, but if you change one of the values, try doing it directly. So person dot, where do we have it here? There we go. No, that's not an example. Person dot age is equal to 12, right? That would change it without using a function. And then I want you to add a property like this one. So we just added one that didn't come by default. So this person, whatever clone this is, he's married. The other ones are not. They don't even have that attribute. That means they're not even able to. And then if you feel like a little bit more, feel free to loop through these. If you don't want to, that's fine. We're going to be learning about loops next.